Well, Mansfield Town reaffirmed their credentials with a 2-0 victory over Grimsby Town, who look very much like a team in a period of stylistic transition. It ended up being quite a dominant performance, didn't it, from the Stags in the end? I thought the Mariners actually in the first 5 or 10 minutes had some encouraging moments and some good passages of play. And there were bits and pieces here and there that, when Grimsby were able to beat the press and give themselves a bit of oxygen, they did actually put some reasonable passages of play together, but that didn't happen anywhere near often enough to be sort of competitive in this match. And certainly in the second half, I think Mansfield ran away with it. And really, I think the difference between these two sides was Mansfield did the basics well consistently, very aggressive against the ball with that mid block, not super high pressing. They weren't drop deep either, but anytime the ball got to a certain level, they were fully at it. And I think for that, you've got to credit the likes of Lucas Akins and Davis Keeler-Dunn and George Maris. Ollie Clark, who came off the bench, did really well. And they connected those first passes together. And I think the thing for Grimsby that is a massive challenge for them with the style that David Artell's trying to implement is getting the first pass right. It's the hardest bit, and it's also the most important bit, because if you can get the first pass right, you do open the game up for yourselves to have an opportunity to just get a little bit of a foothold. I think that the problem that Grimsby have got is that they only have a handful of players who you trust to do that. Camille Conte did that a few times. And I suppose the dilemma would be you had players like Camille Conte who do have that technical ability, and he did manage to go on a couple of ball carries, and you certainly see a player in there. And at the same time, you see moments where I think for the opening goal, Camille Conte was almost running sort of away from the ball when he's supposed to be your main defensive midfielder. You'd want him to be coming across. A few other times where he was sort of jogging for the ball rather than sprinting for it at a more important moment than maybe his body language suggested. I think he's someone who's got a lot to learn. And maybe my own expectations of him going into the season, when I was so excited about him as a signing for Grimsby Town, were a bit high, amplified, I suppose, by the way he started the season. I saw moments of tenacity from Camille Conte. I saw moments where he would sprint for the ball or put a sliding challenge in. But I think if you're going to be, and this I suppose feeds into the big challenge that David Artell has. Ideally, what I think he wants to work towards is probably the point where you can rely on Camille Conte to do the bulk of the destructive work in midfield, so that you can get away with two technical players, sort of two technical number eights, if you like, rather than just the one. However, I think because Camille Conte isn't at that stage where he's got that defensive consistency, Artell felt like he needed to play Kieran Green in there. That brings its own problems, because while Kieran Green, I actually thought he had a decent first half, especially in terms of actually breaking up the play, you can see there's a bit of discomfort from Kieran Green when he gets the ball. And that leads to these sort of panicked periods. And Grimsby kind of caught between... under Paul Hurst, they were very much a direct side that played forward early and played for second balls, and that's how they were happy to go. They've committed as a club to a stylistic sea change in season, which always comes with certain challenges. And now they've got a manager who prefers different methods. And we've seen glimpses of that. And actually, the first three performances were incredibly encouraging in League and Cup. But there's also that element where some of the players kick back into that muscle memory of what they did under Paul Hurst, and some of them, for some of them, I think it's a psychological thing where they're kind of relying on what they know a bit in moments of pressure, which feeds into this sort of first pass point. And And secondly, there's probably an ability question. Can Michi Fete play the way David Artell wants? I would probably say Toby Mullicky maybe a little bit better suited in terms of what he can do on the ball, but he hasn't exactly been in sumptuous form either. Can Harvey Rodgers do what the manager wants? I'm not sure Kieran Green can do it. I think there's so there's this sort of dilemma where you've got players like Alex Hunt and Camille Conte who definitely do have the potential to fit into this style. And then you've got other players, the group that I've just mentioned, who bring something valuable in terms of what they do against the ball. Although I thought, Harvey Rodgers struggled and probably Grimsby weren't as tenacious as you'd have probably hoped this afternoon. But generally speaking, they do offer some of those sort of more destructive agricultural qualities, but they're not going to fit in. So it's a constant balancing act, which I think is really difficult. And for this period, I think, of Grimsby Town's trajectory, the expectations have to be kept pretty modest and minimal, because while I'm incredibly excited about what Grimsby Town can do for the long term with I think one of the best ownership regimes in League Two, and such an open-minded club that's got really intelligent people running it. One of the best developers of style and developers of youth in David Artell as manager, and I think those two things combined with one of the bigger fan bases in League Two, I think is an incredibly exciting proposition. At the same time, they just are in a bit of a moment where they are trying to grasp some new ideas, and that's very much an ongoing process that they're going to have to sort of try and tick off some of the results that they need whilst the players are learning, and hopefully some additions in January are going to help with that, because I think that's going to be really important. But I think what you can see with Mansfield is that they're a lot further along in terms of their own trajectory, and I just love the efficiency of this Mansfield Town team. Players had the confidence to shoot a little bit from outside the box, but they, as I mentioned earlier, they did the simple things well. They connected. All those first passes they got right. Part of that, I would say, was because Grimsby didn't put as much pressure on them as they wanted to, and I would like to see Grimsby be a little bit more aggressive against the ball, and I would say that's probably a disappointing aspect of their performance this afternoon, certainly. But Davis Keeler-Dunn's movement, especially in that second half, was absolutely deadly. Found some real pockets of space. His relationship with Jordan Bowery was great. I think Lewis Brunt, it's an interesting centre-back dilemma, isn't it, Mansfield have got, because they've got three fantastic centre-halves. And this is the one season where Nigel Clough likes to play with the back four. Normally he's sort of... I suppose he's like to sort of flip between a back three and a back four. This season, he is very much set with a back four. And you've got Lewis Brunt, who's having a fantastic season on loan from Leicester. You've got Aidan Flint, who's a championship centre-half. He's played in the championship, should I say. And this season, he's played like a championship centre-half, hasn't he? One of the best, certainly one of the best in League Two. And his experience has been incredibly valuable. So, what a signing he's been. And then Bailey Cargill, who the only reason he's still at this level is probably injuries as well. So that's a wonderful set of centre-back options and a great position for Nigel Clough to be in. And what I really admire about Lewis Brunt is, even though he's been wonderful at centre-back with those sort of pinging those long-range passes to the flank, I suppose Cloughie's actually felt like he could do it in midfield as well. And that's certainly... You sort of credit his versatility from that point of view to sort of find a niche, considering midfield has been a bit of a strong point for Mansfield over the last couple of years as well. I think what that's allowed actually is, because he's got some of those defensive instincts from having played as a centre-back, it does allow Bailey Cargill to make the kind of runs that we saw from him probably with MK Dons going back a few seasons now, when he was an overlapping left centre half, a bit like a sort of League Two Jack O'Connell. And because you've got Brunt dropping in, and I think that's great. And you've got players like Ollie Clark, who, really good midfielders at this level, can't get into the team. George Maris was fantastic today. Stephen Quinn as well, that professionalism to be doing it. I don't know if he's 40 yet, he's certainly 38 or 39, so his professionalism is just unreal. He looks, he's still fit as a fiddle to be playing as well he is at that age. They just look like such a well-oiled, ruthless machine, but that also comes from managerial continuity and an investment, and they're just at a more advanced stage of their process. But yeah, Mansfield look great for the top three. I still would like to see them strengthen in January just to give themselves a little bit more depth. They've had a few injuries. Hopefully they can get one or two of those back as well. But they seem to be navigating the festive period really well. But yeah, I think that the difference between these two teams was Mansfield did the simple things really well, and they're probably further along their footballing trajectory.